The Ploiești refineries produced roughly 1/3 of all the oil used by Nazi Germany. Without them, the panzers stop. The obvious strategy was to bomb them. The problem was location. Ploiești was 1,200 miles from the nearest Allied airfield in North Africa. The overlooked fact Operation Tidal Wave was not a precision raid, it was a suicide mission dressed up as strategic bombing. The plan called for 178 B-24 bombers to fly at treetop height for 1,200 miles, hit 9 separate targets, and fly back. No fighter escort, no second chances. The average age of the pilots was 25. They were told the mission would end the war by Christmas. It did not. The actual result was one of the most expensive air raids in history, and it taught the U.S. Army Air Forces a lesson they would never forget. The idea for Tidal Wave came from Colonel Jacob Smart, a planner on General Louis Brereton's staff. Smart had studied German fuel consumption charts and found a single vulnerability. If the Allies could cut Ploiești's output by even 50% for 6 months, German panzer divisions would have to choose between training and fighting. The refineries themselves were not fragile. They were a mile wide, defended by 200 heavy anti-aircraft guns, 100 fighters, and balloon barrages. German intelligence knew the refineries were a target. They had spent 2 years building a ring of fire that radar operators called the Ring of Steel. The first overlooked decision was that tidal wave planners rejected high-altitude bombing because, well, earlier raids had failed to hit anything smaller than a city block. The Norden bomb site was classified as top secret. But it was also useless against a single refinery tower from 25,000 feet. So planners decided to go low. Low altitude meant no oxygen masks, no formation flying, and honestly, no room for error. It also meant German gunners would be shooting at nearly point-blank range. The B-24 Liberator was chosen for its range. But, the B-24 was also a difficult aircraft to fly at low altitude. Its wings were designed for high speed, not maneuverability. One training note warned pilots that flying below 500 feet, quote, requires constant attention. That was the entire entry. The mission launched on August 1st, 1943. 178 bombers took off. 24 turned back with mechanical problems. 154 continued toward Romania. The navigation plan was precise, but, well, it was also based on a map error that no one caught in the briefing room. The bombers were supposed to cross the mountains at a low pass. Instead, they flew into cloud cover, scattered, and, lost radio contact with each other. By the time the first bombers reached Ploiești, the element of surprise was gone. German radar had tracked them for 300 miles. Lost formation at 0845. Continued alone. The second overlooked decision, was that the raid was scheduled for midday. In August, the heat created thermal updrafts that made low-level bombing almost impossible. One pilot reported that his bomb bay doors were blown off by the shockwave of his own bombs. He was flying at 150 feet when they detonated. The refineries were defended by smoke generators that created artificial cloud cover. Several bombers flew directly into smoke columns, lost visibility, and crashed into storage tanks. The damage was real, but, uneven. 2 refineries were completely destroyed, 5 others lost power for weeks, and, 3 were untouched. The problem was that the untouched refineries simply increased production to compensate. Within 6 weeks, Ploiești's output was back to 90% of pre-raid levels. Of the 154 bombers that reached the target, 53 were shot down. Another 55 landed with battle damage that required major repairs. 440 airmen were killed. The loss rate was over 30%. For comparison, the infamous Schweinfurt raid lost 26%. Ploiești was worse. German and Romanian losses were light. 20 fighters shot down, 30 anti-aircraft gunners killed. The refineries never stopped producing entirely. Operation Tidal Wave is now taught as a case study in the difference between strategy and execution. The strategy was sound. The execution was a disaster. The lesson the U.S. military took away was brutal but simple. Low-altitude bombing against heavily defended targets is unacceptable without air superiority. The second lesson was about resilience. Hitler's fuel situation was, well, desperate. But the Germans adapted, repaired, and redistributed output within just a few weeks. It took another year of systematic bombing against both Ploiești and the synthetic fuel plants in Germany to finally starve the panzers. The men who flew Tidal Wave were not fools. They were volunteers who believed that one mission could end the war. They were wrong, but they went anyway. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.